have you here with me again. First off, a huge thank you to everyone who has subscribed. Your support means so much, and it really helps this channel grow. If you're new here, welcome. You're in the right place if you enjoy relaxing ASMR content, and today's video is a special one. We're diving into the life and legacy of Donald Trump. So sit back, relax, and let's explore this fascinating topic together. Donald John Trump is an American politician, media personality, and businessman who has served as the 47th President of the United States since January 20th, 2025. A member of the Republican Party, he previously served as the 45th President from 2017 to 2021. Born in New York City, Trump graduated from the University of Pennsylvania in 1968 with a bachelor's degree in economics. He became president of his family's real estate business in 1971 and oriented it to luxury accommodation. After a series of bankruptcies in the 1990s, he launched side ventures and hosted and co-produced the reality television series The Apprentice from 2004 to 2015. In the 2016 presidential election, Trump campaigned as a political outsider and defeated Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton. During his first term, Trump's immigration policy included a travel ban targeting refugees and nationals of certain Muslim-majority countries and expanding the U.S.-Mexico border wall. He also briefly implemented a family separation policy. He rolled back several federal regulations, including environmental policies, signed tax cuts into law, began a trade war with China, and appointed 3 Supreme Court justices. He withdrew the U.S. from international agreements on climate, trade, and Iran's nuclear program. Trump met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un without an agreement on denuclearization. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, he downplayed its severity, contradicted guidance from public health officials, and signed a stimulus package. Trump was impeached twice, but acquitted both times. After his first term, scholars and historians ranked Trump as one of the worst presidents in American history. Trump is the central figure of Trumpism and the Make America Great Again movement. Many of his comments and actions have been characterized as racially charged, racist, or misogynistic. He has made false and misleading statements and promoted conspiracy theories to a degree unprecedented in American politics. Trump lost the 2020 presidential election to Joe Biden, but refused to concede, falsely claiming electoral fraud and attempting to overturn the results, including through his involvement in the January 6th U.S. Capitol attack. Between his presidencies, Trump faced legal issues, including civil lawsuits and a criminal conviction for falsifying business records, making him the first U.S. president convicted of a felony. He was shot in an assassination attempt in Pennsylvania in 2024, following his victory against Kamala Harris in the 2024 presidential election. He was sentenced to a penalty-free discharge, and 2 other felony indictments against him were dismissed. Trump began his second presidency by pardoning approximately 1,500 January 6th rioters, signing numerous executive orders, and implementing his mass deportation program. Early life and education. Donald John Trump was born on June 14, 1946, at Jamaica Hospital Fred Trump and Mary Ann MacLeod Trump. He is of German and Scottish descent. He grew up with his older siblings, Mary Ann, Fred Jr., and Elizabeth, and his younger brother Robert in a mansion in the Jamaica Estates neighborhood of Queens. By age 8, he was a millionaire in 2024 dollars. Trump attended the private Q4 school through 7th grade. He was a difficult child and showed an early interest in his father's business. His father enrolled him in New York Military Academy, a private boarding school, to complete secondary school. Trump considered a show business career, but instead enrolled at Fordham University in 1964. 2 years later, he transferred to the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, graduating in May 1968 with a Bachelor of Science in Economics. He was exempted from the draft during the Vietnam War due to bone spurs in his heels. Business career. Real estate starting in 1968. Trump was employed at his father's real estate company, Trump Management, which owned middle-class rental housing in New York City's outer boroughs. In 1971, his father made him president of the company, and he began using the Trump Organization as an umbrella brand. Roy Cohn was Trump's fixer, lawyer, and mentor for 13 years in the 1970s and 1980s. In 1973, Cohn helped Trump countersue the U.S. government for $100 million over charges that Trump's properties had racial discriminatory practices. Trump's counterclaims were dismissed, and the government's case was settled with the Trumps signing a consent decree agreeing to desegregate. Cohn, who had connections with construction unions, introduced political consultant Roger Stone to Trump, who enlisted Stone's services to deal with the federal government. Between 1991 and 2009, Trump filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection for 6 of his businesses, including the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan, casinos in Atlantic City, and the Trump Hotels and Casino Resorts Company. In 1992, Trump, his siblings Mary Ann, Elizabeth, and Robert, and his cousin John W. Walter, each with a 20% share, formed All County Building Supply and Maintenance Corp. The company had no offices and was allegedly a shell company for paying vendors providing services and supplies for Trump's rental units. These services and supplies were then billed to Trump Management with markups of 20 to 50% or more. The increased costs were used to gain state approval for raising rents on his rent-stabilized units. Manhattan and Chicago, developments Trump gained public attention in 1978 with his family's first Manhattan venture, the renovation of the derelict Commodore Hotel adjacent to Grand Central Terminal. The financing was facilitated by a $400 million city property tax abatement arranged by his father, who also, along with Hyatt, guaranteed a $70 million bank construction loan. The hotel reopened in 1980 as the Grand Hyatt Hotel. That same year, Trump obtained rights to develop Trump Tower, a mixed-use skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan. The building houses the headquarters of the Trump Corporation and Trump's Political Action Committee and was his primary residence until 2019. In 1988, Trump acquired the Plaza Hotel with a loan from a consortium of 16 banks. The hotel filed for bankruptcy protection in 1992, and a reorganization plan was approved a month later, with the banks taking control of the property. In 1995, he defaulted defaulted on over $3 billion in bank loans, and lenders seized the Plaza Hotel, along with most of his other properties, in a restructuring that allowed him to avoid personal bankruptcy. The lead bank's attorney remarked that the banks all agreed that he'd be better alive than dead. In 1996, Trump acquired and renovated the mostly vacant 71-story skyscraper at 40 Wall Street, later rebranded as the Trump Building. In the early 1990s, he won the right to develop a 70-acre tract in the Lincoln Square neighborhood near the Hudson River. Struggling with debt from other ventures in 1994, he sold most of his interest in the project to Asian investors who financed its completion as Riverside South. Trump's last major construction project was the 92-story mixed-use Trump International Hotel and Tower in Chicago, which opened in 2008. In 2024, reports emerged that the Internal Revenue Service was investigating whether he had twice written off losses from construction cost overruns and lagging sales of residential units, which he had declared worthless on his 2008 tax return. Atlantic City Casinos in 1984, Trump opened Harrah's at Trump Plaza, a hotel and casino, with financing and management assistance from the Holiday Corporation. It was unprofitable, and in May 1986, he paid Holiday $70 million to take sole control. In 1985, he bought the unopened Atlantic City Hilton Hotel and renamed it Trump Castle. Both casinos filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in 1992. In 1988, Trump acquired a third Atlantic City venue, the Trump Taj Mahal. It was financed with $675 million in junk bonds and completed for $1.1 billion opening in April 1990. He filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in 1991. As part of the restructuring agreement, he gave up half his initial stake and personally guaranteed future performance. To reduce his $900 million in personal debt, he sold the Trump Shuttle airline, his mega yacht Trump Princess, and other businesses. In 1995, Trump founded Trump Hotels and Casino Resorts, THCR, which assumed ownership of the Trump Plaza. THCR purchased the Taj Mahal and Trump Castle in 1996 and later filed for bankruptcy in 2004 and 2009, reducing Trump's ownership to 10%. He remained chairman until 2009. Clubs. In 1985, Trump acquired the Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach, Florida. In 1995, he converted the estate into a private club with an initiation fee and annual dues while retaining a wing of the house as his private residence. He declared the club his primary residence in 2019. The Trump Organization began building and acquiring golf courses in 1999. It owns 14 and manages 3 additional Trump-branded courses worldwide. Licensing the Trump name, the Trump Organization has licensed the Trump name for various consumer products and services, including food, apparel, learning courses, and home furnishings. There have been more than 50 licensing or management deals involving his name, generating at least $59 million for his companies. By 2018, only 2 consumer goods companies continued to license his name. Side ventures. In 1970, Trump invested $70,000 to be credited as a co-producer of a Broadway comedy. In September 1983, he purchased the New Jersey Generals, a team in the United States Football League, after the 1995 season, the league folded, largely due to his attempt to move to a fall schedule, which would have placed it in direct competition with the National Football League. He also sought to force a merger with the NFL by filing an antitrust lawsuit. Trump and his Plaza Hotel hosted several boxing matches at the Atlantic City Convention Hall. In 1989 and 1990, he lent his name to the Tour de Trump cycling race. She'd attempt to create an American counterpart to the Tour de France. Between 1986 and 1988, he purchased significant blocks of shares in various public companies, hinting at potential takeovers before selling the shares for profit. Some observers believed he was engaged in greenmail, profiting from takeover speculation without following through. The New York Times reported that while he initially made millions from these stock transactions, he eventually lost most or all of those gains when investors stopped taking his takeover claims seriously. In 1988, Trump purchased the Eastern Airlines shuttle, financing it with $380 million in loans from a syndicate of 22 banks. He renamed the airline Trump Shuttle and operated it until 1992, when he defaulted on the loans and ownership transferred to the banks. In 1996, Trump purchased the Miss Universe pageants, including Miss USA and Miss Teen USA. After disputes with CBS, he moved both pageants to NBC in 2002. In 2007, he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for his work as producer of Miss Universe. NBC and Univision dropped the pageants in June 2015, following his controversial comments about Mexican immigrants. In 2005, Trump co-founded Trump University, a company offering real estate seminars for up to $35,000, after New York state authorities informed the company that using university violated state law, as it was not an accredited academic institution. It rebranded as the Trump Entrepreneur Initiative in 2010. In 2013, New York State filed a $40 million civil suit against Trump University, alleging fraud and false advertising. 2 additional class action lawsuits were filed in federal court. Internal documents revealed that employees were instructed to use aggressive sales tactics, and former employees testified that the company had misled students. Shortly after winning the 2016 presidential election, Trump agreed to pay a $25 million settlement to resolve the 3 lawsuits. Foundation. The Donald J. Trump Foundation was a private foundation established in 1988. Between 1987 and 2006, Trump contributed $5.4 million to the foundation, which had been fully spent by the end of 2006. After donating $65,000 in 2007-2008, he stopped making personal contributions. The foundation continued receiving millions from other donors, including $5 million from Vince McMahon. It supported health and sports-related charities, conservative groups, and organizations that hosted events at Trump properties. In 2016, the Washington Post reported potential legal and ethical violations by the charity, including self-dealing and possible tax evasion. That same year, the New York Attorney General determined that the foundation had violated state law by soliciting donations without undergoing required external audits. As a result, it was ordered to stop fundraising in New York. Trump's team announced in December 2016 that the foundation would be dissolved. In June 2017, 2018, the New York Attorney General's office filed a civil lawsuit against the foundation, Trump and his adult children, seeking $2.8 million in restitution and additional penalties. In December 2018, the foundation ceased operations and distributed its remaining assets to other charities. In November 2019, a New York judge ordered Trump to pay $2 million to charities for misusing foundation funds, including for financing his presidential campaign. Legal Affairs and Bankruptcies 2018 USA Today review of state and federal court. Records found that Trump and his businesses had been involved in over 4,000 legal cases. While he never filed for personal bankruptcy, his hotel and casino businesses in Atlantic City and New York filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection 6 times between 1991 and 2009. These filings allowed the businesses to continue operating, while banks restructured debt and reduced Trump's ownership stakes. During the 1980s, more than 70 banks lent Trump approximately $4 billion. However, after his corporate bankruptcies in the early 1990s, most major banks, except Deutsche Bank, refused to lend to him. Following the January 6th Capitol attack, Deutsche Bank announced that it would no longer do business with Trump or his company. Wealth Trump has often claimed that he started his career with a small loan of $1 million from his father, which he had to repay with interest. However, records indicate that he borrowed at least $60 million from his father, largely did not repay the loans, and received an additional $413 million adjusted for inflation from his father's company. In 1984, posing as a Trump Organization official named John Barron, Trump called journalist Jonathan Greenberg in an attempt to secure a higher ranking on the Forbes 400 list of wealthy Americans. Over the years, he has reported his net worth across a wide range, from a low of minus $900 million in 1990 to a high of $10 billion in 2015. In 2024, Forbes estimated his net worth at $2.3 billion, ranking him as the 1,438th wealthiest person in the world. Media career Trump has produced 19 books under his name, most of which were written or co-written by ghostwriters. His first book, The Art of the Deal, 1987, became a New York Times bestseller and helped establish his reputation as a successful tycoon. The book was ghostwritten by Tony Schwartz, who is credited as a co-author. From 1985 to 2001, Trump made cameo appearances in various films and television shows. Starting in the 1990s, he was a frequent guest on The Howard Stern Show and appeared 24 times. He hosted his own short-form talk radio program, Trumped, from 2004 to 2008, and was a guest commentator on Fox and Friends from 2011 to 2015. In 2021, he resigned from the Screen Actors Guild as SAG-AFTRA to avoid a disciplinary hearing related to the January 6th attack. 2 days later, the union permanently barred him. The Apprentice and the Celebrity Apprentice producer, Mark Burnett, made Trump a television star when he created The Apprentice, which Trump co-produced and hosted from 2004 to 2015, including its variant, The Celebrity Apprentice. On the show, Trump played the role of a powerful executive who eliminated contestants with the catchphrase, "You're fired." The New York Times described his portrayal as highly flattering, highly fictionalized. The show reshaped Trump's public image and, licensing agreements earned him more than $400 million. Early political aspirations. Trump registered as a Republican in 1987, a member of the Independence Party, the New York State affiliate of the Reform Party, in 1999, a Democrat in 2001, a Republican in 2009, unaffiliated in 2011, and a Republican in 2012. In 1987, Trump placed full-page advertisements in 3 major newspapers expressing his views on foreign policy and how to eliminate the federal budget deficit. In 1988, he approached Lee Atwater, asking to be put into consideration to be Republican nominee, George H.W. Bush's running mate. Bush found the request strange and unbelievable. Trump was a candidate in the 2000 Reform Party presidential primaries for 3 months, but withdrew from the race in February 2000. In 2011, Trump speculated about running against President Barack Obama in the 2012 election, making his first speaking appearance at the Conservative Political Action Conference, CPA, in February, and giving speeches in early primary states. In May 2011, he announced he would not run. 2016 presidential election. Trump announced his candidacy in June 2015. He became the front-runner in March 2016 and was declared the presumptive Republican nominee in May. His campaign statements were often opaque and suggestive, and a record number were false. He was highly critical of media coverage and frequently made claims of media bias. Hillary Clinton led Trump in national polling averages throughout the campaign, but in early July, her lead narrowed. In mid-July, he selected Indiana Governor Mike Pence as his running mate, and the two were officially nominated at the 2016 Republican National Convention. Trump and Clinton faced off in 3 presidential debates in September and October 2016. He twice refused to say whether he would accept the result of the election. Trump's 2016 campaign and political positions described NATO as obsolete and espoused views that were non-interventionist and protectionist. His campaign platform emphasized renegotiating U.S.-China relations and free trade agreements, such as NAFTA, as well as strongly enforcing immigration laws. Other campaign positions included pursuing energy independence while opposing climate change regulations, modernizing services for veterans, repealing and replacing the Affordable Care Act, abolishing Common Core education standards, investing in infrastructure, simplifying the tax code while reducing taxes, and imposing tariffs on imports by companies that offshore jobs. He advocated increasing military spending and implementing extreme vetting or banning immigrants from Muslim-majority countries. Trump's proposed immigration policies were a topic of bitter debate during the 2016 campaign. He promised to build a wall on the Mexico-U.S. border to restrict illegal movement and vowed that Mexico would pay for it. He pledged to deport millions of illegal immigrants residing in the U.S. and criticized birthright citizenship for incentivizing anchor babies. According to an analysis in Political Science Quarterly, Trump made explicitly racist appeals to whites during his 2016 presidential campaign. In particular, his campaign launch speech drew criticism for claiming Mexican immigrants were bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists. In response, NBC fired him from Celebrity Apprentice. Trump's FEC-required reports listed assets above $1.4 billion and outstanding debts of at least $315 million. He did not release his tax returns, contrary to the practice of every major candidate since 1976 and his promises in 2014 and 2015 to do so if he ran for office. He said his tax returns were being audited and that his lawyers had advised him against releasing them after a lengthy court battle to block release of his tax returns and other records to the Manhattan District Attorney for a criminal investigation, including 2 appeals by Trump to the U.S. Supreme Court. In February 2021, the High Court allowed the records to be released to the prosecutor for review by a grand jury. In October 2016, portions of Trump's state filings for 1995 were leaked to a reporter from the New York Times. They showed that he had declared a loss of $916 million that year, which could have allowed him to avoid taxes for up to 18 years. Number 16. Election in Trump's presidency. Washington, November 8, 2016. Trump received 306 pledged electoral votes versus 232 for Clinton. Although, after elector defections on both sides, the official count was ultimately 304 to 227. He was the 5th person to be elected president while losing the popular vote, receiving nearly 2.9 million fewer votes than Clinton, 46.3% to her 48.25%. He was the only president who neither served in the military nor held any government office prior to becoming president. Trump won 30 states, including Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, states which had been considered a blue wall of Democratic strongholds since the 1990s. His victory marked the return of an undivided Republican government, a Republican president, combined with Republican control of both chambers of Congress. Trump's victory sparked protests in major U.S. cities. First presidency, 2017-2021. Trump was inaugurated on January 20th, 2017. The day after his inauguration, an estimated 2.6 million people worldwide, including 500,000 in Washington, D.C., protested against him in the women's marches. Early actions during his first week in office, Trump signed 6 executive orders, including authorizing procedures for repealing the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, withdrawal from the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations, advancement of the Keystone XL and Dakota Access Pipeline projects, and planning for a wall along the U.S. border with Mexico. Trump's daughter Ivanka and son-in-law Jared Kushner became his assistant and senior advisor, respectively. Conflicts of interest before being inaugurated, Trump moved his businesses into a revocable trust rather than a blind trust or equivalent arrangement to cleanly sever himself from his business interests. He continued to profit from his businesses and knew how his administration's policies affected them. Although he said he would eschew new foreign deals, the Trump Organization pursued operational expansions in Scotland, Dubai, and the Dominican Republic. Lobbyists, foreign government officials, and Trump donors and allies generated hundreds of millions of dollars for his resorts and hotels. Trump was sued for violating the domestic and foreign emoluments clauses of the U.S. Constitution, the first time the clauses had been substantively litigated. One case was dismissed in lower court. 2 were dismissed by the U.S. Supreme Court as moot after his term. Domestic policy. Trump took office at the height of the longest economic expansion in American history, which began in 2009 and continued until February 2020 when the COVID-19 recession began. In December 2017, Trump signed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. It reduced tax rates for businesses and individuals and set the penalty associated with the Affordable Care Act's individual mandate to $0. The Trump administration claimed that the act would not decrease government revenue, but 2018 revenues were 7.6% lower than projected. Under Trump, the federal budget deficit increased by almost 50%, reaching nearly $1 trillion in 2019. By the end of his term, the U.S. national debt increased by 39%, reaching $27.75 trillion, and the U.S. debt-to-GDP ratio hit a post-World War II high. Trump also failed to deliver the $1 trillion infrastructure spending plan on which he had campaigned. Trump is the only modern U.S. president to leave office with a smaller workforce than when he took office, by 3 million people. Trump rejects the scientific consensus on climate change. He reduced the budget for renewable energy research by 40% and reversed Obama-era policies directed at curbing climate change. He withdrew from the Paris Agreement, making the U.S. the only nation to not ratify it. Trump aimed to boost the production and exports of fossil fuels. Natural gas expanded under Trump, but coal continued to decline. He rolled back more than 100 federal environmental regulations, including those that curbed greenhouse gas emissions, air and water pollution, and the use of toxic substances. He weakened protections for animals and environmental standards for federal infrastructure projects, and expanded permitted areas for drilling and resource extraction, such as allowing drilling in the Arctic Refuge. Trump dismantled many federal regulations on health, labor, and the environment, among others, including a bill that made it easier for severely mentally ill persons to buy guns. During his first 6 weeks in office, he delayed, suspended, or reversed 90 federal regulations, often after requests by the regulated industries. The Institute for Policy Integrity found that 78% of his proposals were blocked by courts or did not prevail over litigation. During his campaign, Trump vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. In office, he scaled back the act's implementation through executive orders. He expressed a desire to let Obamacare fail. His administration halved the enrollment period and drastically reduced funding for enrollment promotion. In June 2018, the Trump administration joined 18 Republican-led states in arguing before the Supreme Court that the elimination of the financial penalties associated with the individual mandate had rendered the act unconstitutional. Their pleading would have eliminated health insurance coverage for up to 23 million Americans, but was unsuccessful. During the 2016 campaign, Trump promised to protect funding for Medicare and other social safety net programs. In January 2020, he expressed willingness to consider cuts to them. In response to the opioid epidemic, Trump signed legislation in 2018 to increase funding for drug treatments, but was widely criticized for failing to make a concrete strategy. Trump barred organizations that provide abortions or abortion referrals from receiving federal funds. He said he supported traditional marriage, but considered the nationwide legality of same-sex marriage settled. His administration rolled back key components of the Obama administration's workplace protections against discrimination of LGBTQ people. His attempted rollback of anti-discrimination protections for transgender patients in August 2020 was halted by a federal judge after a Supreme Court ruling extended employees' civil rights protections to gender identity and sexual orientation. Trump has said he is opposed to gun control, although his views have shifted over time. His administration took an anti-marijuana position, revoking Obama-era policies that provided protections for states that legalized marijuana. Trump is a longtime advocate of capital punishment, and his administration oversaw the federal government executing 13 prisoners, more than in the previous 56 years combined, ending a 17-year moratorium. In 2016, he said he supported the use of interrogation torture methods such as waterboarding.